I haven't made a video in a while about one of my favorite franchises ever, one of my favorite IPs ever, and there's this little, IP out there. It's a movie franchise. You might have heard of it. It's called Star Wars. And, well, I've always wanted to make a video about, like, the sequel trilogy in general. And this thing just popped up on my tang, bro. Look at this. The original plans for The Force Awakens. This is brought to us by Bullets and Blockbusters. I've never seen a video by them, but I'm gonna give him a fair shake because I am intrigued to see what he has to say.
The Force Awakens was almost a radically different movie, featuring Darth Maul's triumphant return as the main villain, Darth Talon as his deadly opponent.
No, you're gonna piss me off, bro. This video is gonna piss me off for show. 7 seconds in, Jesus Christ.
Apprentice, Luke Skywalker taking center stage for much of the story, and the death of Poe Dameron. So let's dive in and take a look at what happened behind the scenes to arrive at the movie we got, and also take a look at what could have been Star Wars The Force Awakens.
Why the death
In a
of
1983 interview, Mark Hamill shared that George Lucas asked him if he'd be open to playing an older, Obi-Wan-like version of Luke Skywalker in Episode 7, who hands Excalibur down to the next generation.
To be fair, we actually never got that.
When Mark Hamill asked Lucas when the movie would be made, Lucas responded with sometime around 2011. Nearly 3 decades later, in 2012, Lucas invited Hamill and Carrie Fisher to lunch to tell them he was handing over control of Lucasfilm to Kathleen Kennedy to oversee production of Episodes 7, 8, and 9 after his plans for a Star Wars TV series called Underworld fell through. Lucas informed Hamill and Fisher that he wouldn't be directing the films, but assured them that while he wanted them involved, their roles wouldn't be recast if they declined. Instead, their characters would simply be written out. Fisher immediately agreed, but Hamill hesitated, as he was skeptical that they could recapture the magic of the original trilogy, and doubted Harrison Ford.
Man, it's crazy how he actually thought with his brain back then. That's actually a logical move. Like a little bit of hesitation? Wow.
Who had openly expressed his disdain for Han Solo over the years would return. Not only that, but Hamill felt the story had been told, saying there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. And they all lived happily ever after, and that's the way it should be. Hamill would leave the meeting telling Lucas he'd think about it. However, he was stunned to later learn that Disney had purchased Lucasfilm, and that Harrison Ford had agreed to return to the role that made him famous, contingent on a huge payday, and Disney's promise to produce another Indiana Jones film, which was part of the sale to Disney. Feeling a sense of obligation and worried that fans would never forgive him if he passed, Hamill agreed to return as Luke Skywalker against his better judgment.
We live in the wrong timeline,
Part of the sale to Disney included Lucas's story treatments for Episodes 7, 8, and 9. And while some of his ideas would make it into the Disney versions of the films, other ideas would be ignored entirely. Similar to how the original trilogy was influenced by Lucas's strong opposition to the Vietnam War, with the Empire representing America and the Rebels representing Vietnam, the sequels would have drawn inspiration from the aftermath of the Iraq War. As the New Republic attempts to assert control following the fall of the Empire, the films would have explored the challenges of post-war reconstruction, while the galaxy struggles with chaos and lawlessness. The stormtroopers would have been like Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist fighters that joined ISIS and kept on fighting, and they would
Wow. True poetry. That is fucking awesome.
refused to give up when the Republic won.
I'm not trying to
Darth Maul,
glaze or
however,
nothing.
would have returned to rally these fractured remnants of the Empire, while uniting the criminal underworld against the New Republic, with the core of the conflict being the New Republic trying to get the galaxy under control from Maul and his gangsters.
So somehow Palpatine doesn't return in this timeline. That sells me right there. And then also you probably wouldn't have the blue milk scene. Just and the complete character assassination of Luke Skywalker, which will never, ever will be redeemable, in my opinion. And I know everyone has their different opinions and stuff like that. That's cool. Comment down below how you think. I'm entitled to mine, you're entitled to yours. I have no beef with anybody that thinks different than me. Hell, I was raised on Star Wars. My family was raised on Star Wars. And probably the majority of my family doesn't feel the same way I do. It's just an opinion I have, right? It's cool. We can be cool. We can be cordial. Calm down, guys.
Considering Maul would have been old and relying on metal legs to walk, he would have left the fighting to his new apprentice Darth Talon, who would go on to literally
this would have Disney does not want to do that.
They seduce Han and Leia's son Skylar to the dark side, with episode 7 focusing on his fall. For his part, Luke Skywalker would have been trying to restart the Jedi from scratch. But after Skylar betrays him, Luke would have gone into self-imposed exile, which Luke is based on Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. It's important to note that this was Lucas's idea, and it predated both J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson coming aboard. A young female character who Lucas named Thea seeks out Luke Skywalker with the help of Han Solo to learn.
Already a better name, in my opinion. My name is Trey. Like, it's like Rey's not that far off from Trey. It's just one extra letter.
In the ways of the Force after her home is destroyed by Darth Talon. Leia would have been the one trying to rebuild the Republic as they try to get it under control from Maul and his gangsters. By the end of the trilogy, she would have reformed the Republic and become the Supreme Chancellor in charge of everything, while Luke would have trained her in the ways of the Force before dying in Episode 9.
I don't know how that would have played out with her being the Supreme Chancellor, but I mean, Rey's backstory with her, like, family being killed, like, not, like, lingering it off and having it be the main mystery and have people on YouTube constantly talk about who's Rey's parents? Who's Rey's parents? Is she a Kenobi? Is she a fucking Skywalker? Like, that shit was so mad annoying, especially the way it got left off. But yeah, like that's actually believable. It's grounded. It doesn't, so far, I don't know how it's going to end, but it doesn't seem like it's trying to replicate exactly what fucking happened in The New Hope, which I appreciate.
After having rebuilt much of the Jedi, with Leia being revealed as the actual chosen one. Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy would hire Michael Arndt, who won an Oscar,
which is also canon as well, because of what Yoda said,
for Little Miss Sunshine, to write the entire sequel trilogy, not just Episode 7. And while he worked with Lucas to realize his vision, once Disney purchased Lucasfilm, they decided they didn't want to go in that direction. So the mandate was to start from scratch, even though many of George's ideas evolved and found their way into the final film. For example, Darth Maul would morph into a new character named Uber, before morphing again into Snoke. Darth Talon, who would have been a Jedi hunter, and Han and Leia's son would merge into one character, Kylo Ren, with his fall to the dark side happening off-screen before Episode 7, instead of during the film like Lucas had planned. George's vision was always about a young woman on her quest to become a Jedi Knight. From the beginning, Arndt wanted her to be a scavenger and loner. He saw her as a hothead, gearhead.
And to be fair, with The Force Awakens, Rey was a very likable character. The only thing I had a critique with was she leveled up extremely fast, almost like in Matrix with Neo, but Neo had a whole simulation and training kit and like a whole like program system where he could just plug and play. You don't do that with the Force. So yeah, that kind of bugged me, and then also it kind of being like a practically a direct copy of A New Hope, but just, you know, updated.
Headed badass and the ultimate outsider and disenfranchised person, because that person has the longest journey. Originally, Arndt had Rey's home destroyed before she goes on the road to meet Luke, where she's trained by the Jedi Master before confronting the bad guy. But Arndt felt that every time Luke entered the movie, he just took it over, and suddenly you didn't care about Rey anymore. As a result, they decided to make Luke himself the MacGuffin and save him for the end of the film. Mark Hamill would be devastated to learn that he was basically cut out of the movie, and worried that Luke's big reveal at the end of the movie would fall flat and potentially reek as a cheap gimmick. However, some of the early MacGuffins for the movie were a search for Darth Vader's...
You know what was a cheap fucking gimmick? Was when he threw that goddamn lightsaber like it was a goddamn, I don't know, a hot potato.
Remains, since Kylo wanted to take on the persona of Vader in order to...
That's a dope bet, bro. That is sick looking.
...to haunt Luke and seek revenge over his former master wounding him after Kylo betrayed him, as well as a quest to the underwater wreckage of the second Death Star to recover a piece of history about sacred Jedi sites in the galaxy. In this version, the end of the film would have seen Rey find a hidden map inside the Emperor's Tower of the second Death Star.
So in the first movie, we pretty much get all the way to the beginning of, or actually probably 1/4 of the way through the last movie in the sequel trilogy. Yeah, Disney has a habit of like taking storylines and then stretching them out as long as possible. I thought this was like a Disney Plus thing, but wow. There's a culture, there's a trend going on here.
Which tells her the location of the first Jedi temple where Luke is hiding. Obviously, some of these ideas would be repurposed for Episode 9. Arndt also allegedly developed a plot point of having Leia's true parentage revealed to the Senate, destroying her political credibility and undermining her nomination for first senator. Han Solo dying was also something that was pitched to Harrison Ford by Lucas early on.
To be fair, I believe the plot thread of her true lineage being revealed to the Senate and I believe a form of that did happen in the comics.
The plot point that remained in flux. Arndt had thought that the Han and Leia story was just about them coming back together after separating between episodes 6 and 7, and at the end of the movie they would have reconciled and got over their differences. It wasn't until J.J. Abrams came aboard as director that he felt Han wasn't really pushing the story forward, and suggested that Kylo kill him, which is what Lawrence
Are you I've always heard, because he didn't want to come back for Return of the Jedi, I thought, or I guess it was Revenge of the Jedi back then, but like he didn't want to come back because he wanted him to be killed off in that movie, and something happened where he convinced Han to live, or Harrison Ford to live. But that's interesting, because I always heard that he came back because he wanted to finally die. It was this whole big thing of he wanted Han to die. He was tired of those movies and wanted to just do Indiana Jones. I don't know how to feel about that, man.
hasn't wanted to do all the way back in Return of the Jedi.
I feel like a kid that thought that Santa was real. I was just lied to my whole entire life. It's so weird.
The male lead was also a character Arndt struggled to figure out. At one point, Arndt considered making him a pirate and a merchant marine. Lucas saw him as someone with pure charisma, and early concept art not only shows him as white, but also heavily influenced by Han Solo. It would be Lawrence Kasdan who would eventually suggest making him a former stormtrooper. However, Arndt
great choice, but he should have turned into a Jedi.
Struggled to complete the script, and after Lucas's story treatments were set aside, a writer's room was established that included Arndt, Kiri Hart, Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Empire Jedi, Kathleen Kennedy, and Simon Kinberg. According to Kasdan, the sessions went on for months, with little progress, as they struggled to crack the story. Eager to get the project back on track, Kennedy looked to hire a director. The Incredibles' Brad Bird was reportedly a top choice, but he was busy directing Tomorrowland. Joss Whedon, who had just directed The Avengers, was very eager to do it, but was contracted to do Age of Ultron.
Such a good movie. Oh man, such a good movie.
Leading to what he called a moment of rue. Eventually, J.J. Abrams would be hired at Steven Spielberg's suggestion. Abrams was already known for his signature mystery box storytelling approach, a technique where he thrust the audience into an unfolding mystery to ignite their curiosity and drive the narrative forward.
I miss Lost. That was such a good show.
This approach drives the audience's desire for answers to the mysteries presented, while generating intrigue and providing writers with numerous narrative threads to develop. However, Abrams also had a reputation for leaving many of these questions unanswered, or resolving them in unsatisfying ways, largely because he often didn't have the answers when the mysteries were first thought up. A prime example is the TV show Lost, which he co-created, where many of the island's mysteries were devised on the fly, with explanations only conceived near the series' end. Similarly, in Mission Impossible 3, the Rabbit's Foot remains a vague MacGuffin, with its purpose and nature never fully explained. When Abrams officially signed on to direct Episode 7, Arndt had been working on the script for several months, but said he needed 18 more, which was more time than Disney was willing to give him. From Disney's perspective, they had just purchased Lucasfilm for $4 billion, and their shareholders eagerly wanted a return on that investment. When Abrams asked Disney to push back Episode 7's release date so that they could have more time to work on the script, Disney refused. Around this time, Abrams, Kennedy, and Michael Arndt also met with Lucas to discuss their ideas for the film, but as they began to describe the plot, Lucas immediately got upset, as it dawned on him that they weren't sticking to his story treatments, resulting in Lucas distancing himself from the creative process. And with Michael Arndt unable to move any faster, the decision was made to let him go, so that Abrams and Kasdan could take over and pump out a script as fast as possible to meet Disney's release date. However,
hot take, they could have used ChatGPT. Obviously, ChatGPT wasn't a thing back then, but they like today you could take a ChatGPT and take the premise of what they had, and I guarantee you can create a better, more interesting script than what they came up with.
Their original version of the script also had several key differences to the finished film. For starters, the opening of the film was completely different. Originally, the film mirrored the opening of Episode 4, with a massive Star Destroyer flying overhead, only for it to be revealed that it's being towed before being dropped into the atmosphere of Jakku as scrap. Jakku also wasn't a desert planet like Tatooine, but just a planet used for Imperial scrap. Another version of this opening that was considered featured Luke's severed hand clutching his iconic blue lightsaber floating through space before it enters Jakku's atmosphere as Luke's hand burns up. However, the lightsaber would survive and fall to the planet below, where it would have been.
Oh my. That would be so fucking cool. Just a severed hand to enter, bro, a start of a fucking Star Wars movie. we're gonna rate this movie rated M? That is wild.
Picked up by an alien hand, possibly Maz's. It's also rumored that Rey would have come into possession of the lightsaber much earlier in the film and sought out Han Solo to help her find Luke and return it to him. Rey and Finn would have found Solo as a down-and-out drunk in a bar, separated from Leia. As for Maz, originally she was supposed to follow everyone to the Resistance base, but Abrams cut her out of the third act because he thought she didn't do anything useful except sit around.
To be fair, with the finished product, she didn't do shit.
This is the same reason Lucas killed off Obi-Wan in Episode 4, because he originally did nothing in the third act but sit around the Rebel base during the Death Star trench run. Poe Dameron was originally envisioned as a minor character who would only have appeared in the first act, ultimately dying during the TIE fighter crash on Jakku, which Finn survives. His character went through numerous iterations too. At one point he was a Jedi, then he was a bounty hunter with a Wookiee sidekick, before finally being turned into a pilot. Poe was also originally envisioned as black, while Finn was envisioned as white. After Abrams cast Oscar Isaac, he liked the actor so much that he decided not to kill him off and make him the third lead of the film, echoing the trio of Han, Luke, and Leia from the original trilogy. And while it was Spielberg who suggested Abrams for the job, he's also the one who suggested Abrams add a jump scare explosion after the TIE fighter is sucked into the sand.
I thought that was a nice little touch, honestly.
Spielberg also suggested that trees should be falling during the lightsaber duel between Kylo and Rey.
I like that touch as well.
However, it was Selma director Ava DuVernay who suggested that Rey should pause for a moment, close her eyes, and think back to what she learned from Maz, as she lets the Force come to her. Originally, Rey just calls Kylo a monster before pushing back. But this moment of self-reflection not only connected with the title of the film, The Force Awakens, but ended up being the turning point in the duel. One idea that never made.
How is it that part where the Force Awakens, but she used... she brainwashed them before that? Like, that seems like a lot harder to do. You know? It was funny in the theater seeing it for the first time. But looking back at it, it's like... Huh?
Made it into the final film was a Resistance superweapon called the Warhammer that would have been several times the size of a Star Destroyer and took the form of a massive ship with a huge front that could penetrate a planetary shield and then deploy ships through it. The Resistance would have used this weapon, which went through several different designs, during the attack on Starkiller Base. Snoke at one point was envisioned as a female, as Abrams had reservations about making the character old and decrepit like the Emperor, even though he'd ultimately go in that direction. When Rian Johnson elected to kill the character off in Last Jedi, Abrams apparently laughed when he first read that scene in the script. Early drafts of the film would have clarified why a group like the Resistance existed despite the re-establishment of the Republic. It would have been revealed that the New Republic had significantly reduced its military strength, believing the Empire no longer posed a threat. However, when Leia's warnings about the growing threat of the remnants of the Empire went unheeded, she formed the Resistance to monitor and counter the rising threat of the First Order. Captain Phasma grew out of a rejected design for Kylo Ren, when he was seen as the
She was such a fucking badass character, bro. Amazing actor, and they just threw her away. There's so many characters that just served no fucking purpose, but honestly, creating interest in a fucking movie trailer, in my opinion, it's ridiculous.
Lord of the Stormtroopers in bright, shining silver armor.
And it's crazy, too, because we haven't seen anyone else wear armor like that since then. And you would think she would be wearing it because of maybe some kind of rank or something like that. But no, she's fucking unique. And it feels like there's no reason she's fucking unique. It's just, oh my god.
Originally, though, the character was male, with Benedict Cumberbatch eyed for the part. However, after some backlash online over how few women were in the cast, Abrams and Kasdan decided to switch Phasma's gender to female to help balance things out. The ending to the film was also slightly changed, as it originally featured Rey finding Luke meditating while lifting rocks with the Force. However, Rian Johnson requested that the rocks be removed to align with his script for The Last Jedi, which saw Luke disconnected from the Force. When The Force Awakens was finally released, Lucas didn't hide his disappointment, saying Disney wanted to do a retro movie and there was nothing new in it. He would go on to say that with each movie he worked hard to make them different, with new planets and spaceships, and that there weren't enough visual or technical leaps forward in The Force Awakens. And that's
I frankly think, because I have this opinion based off of like the gaming industry, I think we're at a point where the gaming industry is so saturated, you really don't need to invent new technology to make it better. And you know, I remember with The Mandalorian, they had the new recording sphere, or whatever you want to call it, with the new blue screen technology where you can have whole environments created around you, which is really cool piece of technology. But I mean, like in the Disney Plus shows, it really, the environments feel fake. It feels like they're in a big dome and there's a fucking green screen around them. Like it just doesn't feel right. And then they have certain little props that they either do with CGI or something, to have them weave in between or knock down some trees. It's just like, ugh. And usually the CGI is pretty bad too. So I don't think focusing on like technology, to innovation in your movies is a huge thing. I think honestly, quality of story writing is the biggest issue with Star Wars, which makes sense with the whole situation with the writers and the visions that were supposed to happen, and it got morphed into something that then morphed into something. Then, oh, well, we don't have enough women in the movie, so that morphed into something different. And I could care less about like how many women or how many black people or how many white people or whatever dynamic identity you want to throw in there. Who gives a fuck? At the end of the day, if you have a good performer, you got a good performance, good actors, good CGI, and the CGI in the fucking movies was phenomenal. Disney Plus is a completely different situation by far. But yeah, the best thing about these movies is they look badass. And I feel bad for a lot of people that grow up or they were like, they didn't watch the original Star Wars movies, or they didn't just watch them as kids. And so the first Star Wars movies that they watch is going to be the prequels, because they're going to fall in love with these stories. Because let's be frank, the Star Wars universe is awesome. But man, y'all are missing out on actually good storytelling, like really good storytelling. And people might meme on me, like there are moments in the Star Wars that I really love, in the prequels and also the OGs, where the storytelling is sparse. Like for instance, the writing in Attack of the Clones, it's a little wonky, right? It is, but the premise, it's viable. It makes sense. And I fucking love it. So, yeah, that's the biggest issue I have with is the storytelling by far with the movies, and the direction. The direction is all over the place, and it's still that way. And it still feels like they drag things out way too long, longer than they need to. Oh man, I can't stand it.
Shame, because before Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney, he was planning an ambitious television series called Underworld that would have pushed not only the Star Wars universe forward, but filmmaking technology as well. Ultimately, it would never happen, and the scripts to this series would not only form part of the sale to Disney, but be plundered, with
pretty much what The Mandalorian created.
Many of their ideas showing up in Disney's movies and shows, just like with The Force Awakens.
And hot take, Han Solo was a good movie. That shit was a good movie. It was a little slow. It was, but it was not a bad movie. It was just marketing wise. You have every single Star Wars movie come out during Christmas time, and then you decide to drop that one in the middle of summer. Like, people have a tradition of going to see a Star Wars movie on Christmas, and you're like, you know what? Fuck that tradition. We're gonna make more money this way. No, you lost money, and then also you didn't get to make the sequel, and you didn't make the third movie as well. So it's like,
Awakens, which while not exactly following Lucas's sequel trilogy treatments, still used many of his ideas. And if you'd like to see a video on Star Wars Underworld and what that would have been like, click the link on the end screen coming right up.
I don't think I would have liked that show. The premise looks really cool, but that poster looks a little funky. But yeah, let's look at the comment section below. Great video, by the way. I've never heard of this guy. I'm definitely going to give him a sub. Only 131k subscribers. Wow. The quality of his videos, I feel like he would have more. So hopefully he does get more one day. And continues to grow and flourish. Amazing video by him. So yeah, let's rush a script to make money for the oh, I bet the shareholders are kicking themselves in the ass right now, bro. It's crazy the decisions they're pushing. As soon as possible. Isn't a great way to start a movie. To be frank though, like Rogue One was so good, and the creating of that movie was so messy. They got so lucky on that movie because it's so fucking good, man. What a fucking rehab job they did on that movie. If Poe died in The Force Awakens, then we never get the gem of a line that is, somehow Palpatine returned. Yeah, that will always live in my head rent free. Lucas going, yeah, you want to play an old Luke to Mark, and then going, gonna make it to 2011, and the 80s is fucking hilarious. Yeah. Every time I see what The Force Awakens or sequel trilogy could have been video, I get kind of angry. Thanks for helping me start my day off right. Yeah. No, it really pisses me off. It does. And to be fair, I think The Force Awakens is probably, no, not probably, 100% the best film out of all of the sequel trilogy. There's a lot of flaws, a lot of holes, a lot of directions that I see that could have been taken that would have been so much better, and it's so more like, man. Oh man, George is a genius. Really wish they would have stuck to his vision, but it is what it is. My name is Trey Swish. I love Star Wars. Grew up on it. I hope you do too, because you're watching this video. Comment down below your thoughts on this whole situation. Hit that like button as well, because it's free. It's easy to do. It's just one little click, you know, and it'll push out to more people like me and you. And lastly but not least, comment down below. I want to hear your thoughts, man. I really do. Let's talk Star Wars in the comment section below. Keep the conversation flowing. And you know, I'll see you in the next one, everybody. May the Force be with you. Deuces.